Hey, I am Dr. Lisa Oliver. I am a life transition educator and certified grief counselor. And in this installment, and I know to all five of my followers, it's been a minute since I made an installment, but I'm here. In this installment, I'm going to talk about the grief that I experienced as a grief counselor regarding the death of my sister. So, my sister Tiffany died at age 52 of a fatal drug overdose. And let me share my screen if in case you're interested in reading her story, well, not necessarily her story, but her obituary, which is her story. There it is right there. And it's called A Requiem for My Sister. So that is the obituary that we shared with the world. And I got to tell you, we got mixed reviews, most positive, but a lot of people were just upset because we told the story of my sister's life. And like my brother said, if you knew Tiffany, you knew Tiffany. So us writing a story that she accepted Christ at a young age and she went sailing and she volunteered at the puppy farm, that wouldn't have been true. Or, it might have been true, but it wouldn't have been her whole life, right? And so we believe in being authentic. But this is not the reason why I'm talking to y'all today. I wanted to share with you the grief and the types of grief I experienced at the death of my sister. So I have a total of five. And so the first one is anticipatory grief. So, like the word anticipatory means you're expecting something to happen. And in this case, I was expecting the death of my sister. And, this happens with probably your loved ones who may be very old, who keep on experiencing numerous illnesses to put them in the hospital. Or if you're the loved one of a person who struggles with drugs, this is a very real life for you. And so I realized once Tiffany died that I've been anticipating for that other proverbial shoe to drop for decades. So it's that anticipatory anticipatory grief that I was expecting, which is to get that call. The second type of grief, I grieved the loss of her potential. Tiffany was not a dumb child. She entered Morgan State University as a computer science major, but it just made me sad that all that potential was focused in getting another high and just doing all the things that one does because of their addiction, right? So that was my grief, just the loss of the potential of this person who had a lot to offer the world, but she didn't. The third type of grief is the grief that you feel when the people feel as though that their need to express their grief to you supersedes your need to grieve. Let me say it again. The grief you feel when people expect that their grief is more important than your grief. And, regarding my sister, I got a couple of phone calls and they were kind of like that. They were just telling me what they did to help my sister, or they was expressing, and it was just, I can't really explain it, but it was just hurting my head, right? Because I need to focus on the logistics of getting my sister from point A to point B and doing what I need to do. And these people, they were expressing to me their loss, but it was extended. But the one that really hit home was not even my sister's funeral, it was my mother's funeral. My mother died in 1998. And of course, this was way before COVID, when in a traditional sense, when we mourn someone who dies, we all stay at the house, we eat, we talk, we tell stories, what have you. So at this particular time, I was just exhausted. And I really just said, hey, everybody, y'all can hang out, but I'm going to bed. Eventually, everybody left, and I went to bed. Well, someone came over to the house, and I was already in bed. I had my night clothes on, and I was getting ready to go to sleep. And my husband answered the door. And so it was this person who absolutely insisted that they speak with me. This person lived around the corner, 2 blocks over, and they absolutely just insisted that they were not going until they spoke to Lisa. Okay, so my husband gets me out of bed. I get him some clothes on, brush my teeth, meet this person. I didn't even know who this person was. This was an older person. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And she goes on to explain to me that she is the mother of a friend of a sibling. It was just amazing to me that this person, at the time it wasn't amazing, but as you think back, you're like, my God, this person could not have came back the next day. So it was like this person's need to express their grief superseded my need to rest. And that just, as you can see, it still gets to me because it happened in 1998 and I'm still talking about it. But anyhow, that was number 3. Number 1 was the anticipatory grief. I knew that this is eventually was going to happen. The second was the loss of potential. I grieved the loss of potential of my sister. The third one was people whose need to grieve people whose need to express their grief to you supersedes your need to grieve. The fourth one is kind of cute, but it's exhausting nonetheless, is people who contact you and they express their condolences, but they don't know what to say after that. So what do? They go into, my brother David, his sister had gotten a scholarship and she's here and she's doing that and blah, blah, and did you get your COVID vaccine? And these people are bringing up all types of things that, maybe in another conversation, another time, but right now I'm grieving my sister and I really don't have the energy to get into these conversations. And it is really exhausting. The last one is one that really gets to me. And I think a lot of us have experienced this, is that when people in your life just don't show up, and showing up means different things to different people, but there were certain people in my life who I expected to send a card, attend the Zoom memorial service. They just didn't show up. Some people said my condolences and they just never mentioned it anymore. And I think that's the thing that hurts a lot. And I grieve that. I grieve that more than I grieve the death of my sister. Because like I said, I always knew I was going to get that call that Tiffany had OD'd. But the people who didn't show up was kind of like, wow, that's deep. But I'm going to tell you something. I thank God for that, because I thank God for Tiffany's death, because it showed me it gave me clarity to see what relationships I need to continue to nurture, and some relationships that maybe, they weren't what I thought they were. And granted, I get it. Some people don't deal with death well. And in one of my previous installments of Dr. Lisa I talk about always show up to the funeral. Because some people don't like funerals, and I get that, but the person who lost the person it's not a picnic for them either. So it's really not about you, it's about the person that you're supposed to be supporting. So those are my 5 things that I learned as a grief counselor that I was made aware of, which is 1, if you're dealing with a person with addiction or with a lot of illnesses for a long time, you might experience anticipatory grief. The next thing that I talked about was the loss of potential. In my sister's case, my sister was pretty smart and her potential was lost due to addiction. And you might feel that loss of potential if a child dies, or, you feel as though someone died too early. The third one is people who feel as though their need to express their grief supersedes your need to grieve. The fourth one is people who express their condolences, but they don't know what else to say. So they start talking about everything else that's going on in their life or their sibling's life or somebody's life, but it doesn't have to do with your sister or whoever. And it's kind of exhausting because that requires you to go within yourself to keep this conversation going. The fifth one is that people, sometimes when you grieve, sometimes when you lose a person, people in your life just will not show up. And that was the grief that I experienced. And one more thing, as you grieve, you start to feel this real heaviness amongst you. And rest. That's all I can say. Just make sure you rest. Make sure you drink water. You're going to do a lot of crying. You don't want to be dehydrated. Like one of my friends typed on Facebook, it's not the time to look like a California raisin. So you want to hydrate and not dehydrate. And get some rest. I got to tell you, my sister's remembrance service was on the 16th. That was a Saturday. And I'm going to tell you, I went to bed at 9 o'clock that Saturday night. I did not get up out the bed until 4 o'clock. Yeah, I got up, got some water, went to the bathroom. But my body was just processing that grief. And that's the thing that we have to do, is allow ourselves to grieve for however long it takes. You know, grief is different for different people. And we really just need to respect each other's need to feel what it is that we're feeling. Because I'm going to tell you something, when you don't sit down with the grief and deal with it, it comes out in other ways. So that is all. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate y'all. And you know, if you have any questions, you can email me at lisa@drlisaoliver.com. Go to my website, www.drlisaoliver.com. You already saw my blog, dyinganddeaftalk.com. So that is all for now. Thank you again. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.